Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Friday morning. It's May 18th. It's about 7:20 in the morning, and obviously I'm not in my office today. I'm actually coming to you from inside the new F-250. It's still raining like crazy out, so I can't really do much to show you the truck yet, but at least you get a little bit of the interior here. It is beautiful. I would almost say it's luxurious. I'll do it right, but it's a beautiful truck. We sit way up high. It's got a 6-inch lift on it, so it's you definitely feel like you have a command of the road as you go down the road. Anyway, I'm obviously not in the office. I've got took the day off. Got to do a couple things you just can't do off hours. I just have a follow-up appointment with my doctor, and you can only do that on their hours. So anyway, I decided to take the day off. So I've got head up to Annapolis, Maryland, and do a couple things up there. One of the things actually we got to do is get this truck registered. So we've got the certificate of origin from Tennessee now, and all the paperwork. So into the agency we love to call the MVA, and that's the Maryland Vehicle Administration. And let's see, just let me negotiate some traffic here. So anyway, I thought we'd do part 2 of the videos, part 2 of my story from inside the truck. Because that came from one of you guys, so I appreciate the idea. It just happened to come on the night before I was taking the day out of the office, so it made sense. So I don't know if I've done a driving vid before. It might be my first one. So anyway, part 2 takes off where we left off. Part 1 was kind of got to PLU. So we're talking 18 years old, fall of 1982, and I'm off to school. I told you it was one of my, still stands as probably one of my 10 best days in my life. Kind of amazing how many people have already written back on that video. So anyway, let's take it from here. So we get to school, I get to PLU. I've mentioned to you in one of my other videos that I loved Mount Rainier. I loved the idea of being a mountain ranger or park ranger, and either going into the law enforcement side of rangers or going into what they call the naturalist side and be a park ranger and hike trails and introduce people to nature. And that's where I thought I was going. And I got, luckily the first year of college really is all foundational work. It's really not major specific. So spent my first semester, got it done. At PLU, I think they still do it. We call it interim or winterim, where in between fall and spring semester is a month. The month of January is where you can take a full class, but it's 12 weeks compressed into 4. I end up doing that every year, all 4 years. So the first one I took was a geology major course, kind of Geology 101, and that was a required course to graduate with a geology degree, which was kind of required to become a park ranger or a naturalist back in the early 80s. And I found out I didn't really enjoy the class very much, and I went and did some research on what geologists, park rangers, naturalists make, and got back in 1982, 1983, it was something like between $14,000 and $16,000 or $18,000 starting salary, and I just realized that this wasn't going to be for me. I didn't enjoy it like I thought I would, and it just didn't fit what I wanted in my life. So literally February of my freshman year, I made a change, and I looked at where the world was headed, where the markets were headed, and I looked back in my high school years, and I enjoyed some computer science. I was pretty good at math, and again, looking back with today's lens, it's a silly sentence, but back in the early 80s, if you were good at math, you were good at engineering, they kind of thought maybe you'd be good at computers. We didn't even call it IT back then. Anyway, so I switched. I decided to go ahead and declare that I was going to be a computer engineering or computer science major. And I did it early enough in my college career where it really didn't impact me. So that goes to one of the points we talked about before, and that's maintaining momentum. rather than freaking out that I didn't want to be a geologist and now I didn't know what I wanted to do, or I didn't know why I was in college, and stopping and going home and quitting school and saying I'll get back when I know what I'm doing, that just wasn't an option for me for a lot of the reasons we talked about in part one. And so I had to keep going. I mean, failure wasn't an option. I was on a 4-year plan. I'm paying for school myself, you know, with school loans and grants and scholarships. They ran out after 4 years. So I had a drop dead date. I couldn't declare that I was going to take another year to figure it out. I couldn't take another year to think things through and then start over next year. I had to keep going. So I put together a 3.5-year plan that got me to a computer science degree by May of 1986. So 3.5-year plan during essentially my 5th or 6th month in college. And I had it down every semester. I knew what classes I needed to take, and I knew which semester I was going to do it, and I knew that I had all the classes I'd need to apply for graduation, and I knew that going into spring of my freshman year. So I had my plan, and I just stuck to it. And I just think one of those big lessons is keep your momentum going as best you can. Doesn't mean you can't change decisions or change directions, but keep your momentum going. The other reason I wanted to keep my my college years as a separate video is it really was, for me, it was what we call an inflection point in life, where you're going down one path and then some events take off and you take off. And for me, that was college. I view those 4 years as a true watershed event for me. I got to be who I wanted to be. I got to decide what I wanted in life. And I was just able to kind of control my day-to-day existence. Our running teams, the cross country and track teams, have been doing very well. We actually went to national meets pretty much all 3 years that I was involved in the sports teams. And so that gave me, you know, I was traveling pretty much for the first time in my life. We were flying to DC from Tacoma. We were flying to Wisconsin. So it gave me, those college years gave me an opportunity to travel and see the world and see what being part of an elite team meant. Kind of uneventful for the 4 years. I mean, basically it's a 4-year hole in my story here. It basically is just I went to school, graduated in 4 years, got my bachelor's of science, and I learned to work. And I think part of my work ethic really came out of those years, where a lot of people in college, it's a slower time, it's a party time. Don't get me wrong, we did plenty of partying. I'm not trying to go down, I'm the angel here at all. But what I'm trying to say is, I learned the value of going to school full time and working 20 to 25 hours a week and running full time. And being able to juggle and balance those things and not needing much downtime. And I think you see that, again, that those are some decision points in my life that affect me to this day and help me get to where I am. So where a lot of people maybe were doing school 30 hours a week, I was doing school full time, working 25 hours, running 100 miles a week, going to those meets, you know, probably 30 weeks out of the year we had a meet somewhere. And I think that taught me the work ethic, that you can do it if you wanted to achieve more. Because the other thing I want to say about PLU is, back in the 80s anyway, I didn't belong there. I mean, it was kind of an elite school. It was, most of the people there weren't on scholarship. I would think I was low man on the totem pole for the 4 years. If you've ever seen the movie The Skulls, and if you haven't, I recommend it. It's a pretty good movie. But I was that guy that was working in the, you know, I was cooking, I was serving the people who I was going to school with, and none of my other friends needed to do that. So it taught me don't mind being low man on the pole, taught me work, do things harder and differently than everyone else around you. And that was really 4 years. 2 years into it, I actually got hired by the data center. And so not only was my degree in Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, but it was also, I got to spend 20-25 hours a week in the data center learning like real world computers. because the data center was the operations center for the entire university, the business office, in addition to all the classrooms. So this is where I was able to get out of the classroom, get out of theory, get out of books, and get into how computers worked in the real world. And I did that for 2 years. And then in addition to that, after my junior year, it allowed me to stay on campus. I actually rented a house with 4 or 5 other people, and I was able to not go home. And that was a huge win for me. So I spent 2 summers at home during my college years, but the summer after my junior year, I got to stay on a house right across the street from campus. Worked full time at the data center until my senior year started. And so that looked great on a resume. Not only did I have a Bachelor of Science, but I had real applicable experience in 2 years of it by the time I even graduated college. That makes my resume look that much better, and that's part of that momentum I keep preaching to you guys about. So my degree's in computers. I have 2 years of hands-on experience in computers. Even though it's on the campus still, it wasn't out as an intern, it wasn't out in a real company, but it was running a real data center that an entire university was dependent upon for their operations. I don't want to say that I ran the data center. I was just a cog in the wheels there. I was one of many employees. But that gave me a real good resume. The other watershed event for me was one of my, Dr. Rick Spillman, changed my life. He told me that a grad of PLU 25 or 30 years before then was fairly highly placed at a company, and they're called the MITRE Corporation, MITRE, and they were based out of Boston. Now they're pretty much based out of DC. But they were coming on site. He was a tech director. He was pretty high up in MITRE, and he had directed that MITRE would hire people off of his little campus every year. And so Dr. Spillman told me, hey, go. I want you to get your resume together. I want you to go to this. I want you to get interviewed. I think you're exactly what they're looking for. It would give you a job immediately after school. So I went, and there's a long line, lots of resumes, lots of people, and the interviewer was a little bit rough and said, look, we're only looking for a couple people. If we end up choosing you, we're going to fly you back to Boston over Christmas break, put you through the full interview process, but we only want a couple people. And he actually looked at my transcript, he looked at my my resume, and he looked up from it in like 2 minutes and said, when can you come to Boston? And so that was amazing to me. And so we scheduled the trip over, after Christmas, in between the holidays, and I went and interviewed at MITRE. And I actually had an offer letter, the first week of January of my senior year of college. And my dad looked at it and said, that's more money than I make today. And so that was a huge wake-up call for me that if you're in the right place, the right career, the right skill set, the money is much different. And so I was done. I had another semester of college to finish. I couldn't screw it up. That was one of the contingencies in the offer letter, was I had to finish my degree and graduate in good standing, and I wasn't going to mess that up. So I was actually one of the few people who went into my senior year spring last semester already had a job done, start date, benefits, good salary. So that was an inflection point for me, and I really owe that to Dr. Spillman. That wasn't really my doing. And then the last part of my college story, we're at 13 minutes, so we need to finish this up. The last part of my college story is, because I'd taken that interim or winter course every year, I had 4 extra classes, which meant I could have graduated pretty much a couple months earlier. I could have not needed my spring semester, my senior year. And I decided to go anyway. I was in no rush to leave this cocoon of the campus. So I chose to stay. But to stay, you had to take 3 courses to stay on campus and stay a full-time student. So I took another course. I mean, I had a couple courses to finish up the 400 levels, the graduate levels, to stay in my degree program. But I just threw one out there. I took Econ 101. Econ 101 is a senior spring semester. So it was me and like 25 freshmen. And I learned something huge about myself. I had taken the wrong degree. Can you believe that? Spring semester of my senior year, I realized I had a calling for business, for numbers, for money, for finance, far stronger than technology. And I had an epiphany over those 12 weeks. And that was someday I would need to get out of technology and move into business. That's kind of an emotional thing to get through when you're a senior, that you spent your 4 years kind of in the wrong degree. But again, that goes to the momentum preach, right? The momentum sermon, and that is, I didn't stop. I didn't change. I didn't say I have to give up my job and go back to school and get my degree in finance or my MBA. I didn't do that. I kept the momentum going. I took my job. I graduated, got my degree. 2-3 days later, I got on an airplane and flew to Boston. All right, from Seattle, Washington to Boston, Massachusetts. When I got off that plane and got into that cab, I had a briefcase in one hand and a suitcase in the other, and I did not know anybody within 3,000 miles of me. So we're going to end it there. We're right at 16 minutes, so it's still too long, but God, I don't know how to tell these stories any quicker than that. So welcome to the truck. You now we've gotten me through college, and I'm starting my career. And there are several more inflection points in my life during those next 8 years. So hope it lands. You guys have been giving me great feedback. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I enjoy these videos. This one's a little less weird, I think, than the last one. So have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. I'll try to get part 3 up over the weekend. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.